What's up, Quest fam? Welcome back, and thanks for being here. We're glad to have you on the show listening, and we appreciate your support. Today's episode, we will talk about my year in review as I reflect on my biggest impacts and some of the things that have affected me in the last year of my life. So without further ado, let's go ahead and drop into the show. So anyways, you brought up this subject. I think it's a fascinating one for us to have our audience get to know us a little bit better and get to know the shape of our relationship and where that's kind of transpired since we met.
Well, I agree, and it's kind of funny how this all sort of worked out. I think it was back in August. I think it was like the middle of August when you first stumbled into the old location, just dropping in for a Saturday class, and we got to talk and whatnot. You were looking to get into CrossFit, in a gym setting, and you really enjoyed it. I know the group of people there was actually really good. And then, the funny thing is, we told you that we were moving locations the following Saturday, show up at 8 o'clock, and there's a group there, and then I see your ass there, and I'm like, all right, well then this guy kind of means business. So we just wanted to kind of talk about this year in review. We've kind of gone through it together, and I think we've both made tremendous improvements and have far more understanding than when we even first started this. And I think that just goes back to the quest and understanding what our true quest is and what we're trying to get out of life as we sort of try and master our skill.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I reflect on that day, and Jess actually, she's the one who deserves all the credit for pushing me in that direction. There was a handful of gyms that she had me set up for some trials so that I can go out there and try out a bunch of different CrossFit gyms. We were going through the pregnancy. I was training in my backyard still at the time, doing some CrossFit-like workouts. But it's hard to get motivated by yourself and to keep that motivation long-term. So she set me up with you guys, which was CrossFit Loveland. I was actually set up for Big Thompson, which was not too far from you guys' original location. So it was down that way. And conveniently enough, I showed up on a Saturday. I worked out with Trav, Paul, Kylie, a few others there. Even Gabby Wells was there too.
Yeah, I think Gabby did it with us also.
Yeah, so there was a handful of our regular big names in here, and it was fun. It was a good environment. It was very inviting. You guys kind of brought me in, and I had nothing better to do on those weekends anyways, except for to get involved with some type of fitness and some type of group fitness, which I did, and I came back, as you had mentioned, to help move. I was like, what better way to show who I am as a character than to show up and help you guys in the process of moving and know where your other location was. So
that was really awesome. Yeah. And I always think the stars align, or God puts the right people in your path for a reason, and you're definitely one of those that we enjoy in our gym and as our family. And we've seen it with the growth with yourself and just with the gym, and that's what we enjoy. So rewinding a little bit, let's go back maybe a couple months. When was it that you first started or were finishing up your wellness certificate and wanted to start teaching yoga and all that good stuff?
So during the winter of, 2016 would be the beginning of 2017. During that time, I was still in school, finishing my college credentials as a integrative health and wellness coach. I went through the schooling for that. I had already had my certificate for yoga training and had done a number of classes associated with that and finishing that up. So I started a couple of teaching gigs right out the gate. And one was at a rec center that was in Greeley, and at that point, that was a personal reference from one of my yoga trainee teachers that taught me in my yoga training school. She was like, I think you'd be a good fit for this, with your concept of fitness and bringing that into the yoga arena, and it's in this fitness gym. And I was just chomping at the bit. Like, let's get out there and teach. Most people who finish their yoga training, they don't get out there and they don't do anything with it. For a majority of yogis, I find that it's just a personal growth practice with their path, and they don't actually want to explore the aspect of getting out there and teaching in a group fitness setting. But I was the complete opposite. I saw it as a platform to bridge the gap of all these other arenas and to be able to utilize that in a bigger arena. So I taught at the rec center, which never really transpired into what I wanted it to be, because I had this idea for a yoga fit class. And yoga fit to me was like, okay, we're going to go in there, high intensity, high energy. We're going to have some sculpting processes in it. We're going to do a little bit of Pilates, a little bit of body weight movements, and get things cooking, get the internals going, have the movement with the breath sequence in there, and use some of the mindful philosophies and principles of yoga and kind of tie that all in. But it never really panned out to what it was going to be. Then I had some other teaching opportunities at the fitness center at the college that I went to with the credentials as well. And again, it was just kind of striking out one thing after the other. But that was the beginning of that in just trial and error. And I think you have to take those smaller jobs when you initiate. Yeah. It's sort of like when you take employment when you're young, right? And you start in like a kitchen, in the back of the kitchen as a dishwasher, or whatever those lesser roles are, so that you can learn, how to communicate with your clientele a little bit better. So that was a huge growth experience for me.
Well, I mean, I think touching base on that, I mean, we don't, I think sometimes we forget about the steps of mastery, you know what I mean? We're not just born and start walking, you know what I mean? We're born, okay? It takes a little bit to get strong, so now we're standing up, okay? Now we're eventually crawling, okay? Now we're standing up, but we're falling. We're not falling every single time. I heard this great analogy, like imagine if we took our kids and we pretty much just sat them in a chair and you said, typically kids start walking, 2 years old,
Sure.
Something like
Pretty
that.
common, yeah.
Yeah, so then we'll say, all right, kid, you're going to pretty much sit in this chair, and until you can walk at 2 years old, that's when we're going to let you walk. You know what I mean? That's not appreciating sort of the process, you know what I mean? And learning to crawl before you can walk, and that's such a common saying, but I think we forget how appropriate it is in all of life.
Well, it's really so true. We have to fall in the process. We have to fall forward. We have to learn to pick ourselves back up, and that's a perfect analogy for any arena that we dabble with in life with the lesson stick. So yeah, I agree totally.
That's awesome, dude. Okay, then moving forward, you did have a son kind of around that same time that you were looking, or that you had started. I know he was really, really young when you started with the gym. So how was kind of that for you? Because that was your first kid, yeah?
Yeah, this is my first kid. I played stepdad since Andrew was 4. So when he first turned 4, Jess and I got together. So stepping into that role is obviously a big role to take on. Coming into another relationship where you're playing, the step parent, and I loved him as my own. Fast forward a little bit, we had our own kid. We found out that it was going to be a boy, which is my son Logan, and that was a transformational process as well. Not only going through like my yoga teacher training and trying to find my path and find my quest, what my true quest was. I was able to shed a lot of snake skin and then really transform and go into a lot of maturity, and then going through that process with having a son and experiencing that like all the way through, literally hands-on. I remember talking to the midwife, and I told her I read this book, The Expectant Father. I think there's a couple different versions out there, but I read it, and it basically pre-preps you for fatherhood, what to expect throughout the whole prenatal experience. And I was always telling the midwife, I was like, well, in a pinch, I think if I was like in the back of a taxi cab, like I think I can safely deliver this baby. Like put me in already. Which
you're like fight or flight mode. I'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll make it happen, right? So and I didn't necessarily say it jokingly. I was pretty confident about that back then. But she took that into consideration, and when it came time, like she she asked me, she said, would the father like to do the honors? And she just coached me through it. And I literally was the first one to touch my son, to hand deliver him, with the assistance of the midwife behind me.
Yeah.
Had skin to skin with him, got to hold him and go through that entire process, which was absolutely a blessing, a miracle, and something that you can't describe. I've talked with a lot of my friends, and when I share that piece of information with them, they're like, "Oh yeah, no way, I'm not looking down there. I don't want to be a part of that."
Well, I think it's very significant, as far as actually being hands-on, with birthing your son. That kind of takes us almost, I don't know if that's back to our primal roots, but I'm
Sure.
sure like there was no clean hospitals or anything like that, you know
Right.
what I mean? So even just like taking that, not typical approach to the birthing process. I think that's really awesome that you were ready, and it's definitely an awesome memory to kind of have. You know what I mean? You see life at its purest form, and it's very
Sure.
special. And I think we take that for granted, because it's not every day where we're like, oh, a baby's magical. You think about you don't think about all that stuff, but as you experience it, and I know that there's one of our athletes who just got pregnant, and she's saying like understanding and like knowing like, oh, now my baby's the size of a fruit, or a kiwi, or now it's an orange, now it's like a cantaloupe. Like that's just really neat in itself, and like just seeing the process, and again kind of appreciating the process. That's really
Absolutely.
really cool, man.
There's nothing more intimate in an experience such as that, like going through the process of creating life with your partner and having that intimacy like really be exploited.
Oh yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned that, with the different sizes, because it just brings me back to that experience, with Jess, and she would have apps, and she would share like the development details as far as like, oh yeah, now it's the size of a fig, in comparison, and it has its eyes and it has its ears and it's starting to shape, and just being wowed by the phenomenon of creating life and sharing that together, and picturing, this little being that you helped create like inside your partner's body was pretty incredible experience, and you can't begin to fathom like the changes that they go through
Oh
throughout
yeah.
the entire pregnancy, but it's
Well, at
pretty
9 months, dude. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I try and
And
get
there's
my back split up at 9 months, and it's a failure every time, man.
And as long as it seems, it actually goes by fairly quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you look back, they grow so quick. So Logan is now almost like 18 months old.
Dang.
But yeah, fantastic question. I've brought the kids in here, for a couple of different things, and Jess shows her support when we do, Murph, or have like community
Events
gatherings
and
and stuff
whatnot.
like that.
No,
For sure.
it's awesome. So you're not going to be the guy that's going to say Logan is 128 months as of now. You're going to start to change over to years, right?
Yeah, soon.
Okay,
Soon.
soon, hopefully. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah,
Awesome,
for
awesome, man.
You
And
do,
then
man.
so then you started CrossFit. You were only doing it on the weekends, I remember, because with your work and with our hours, nothing really seemed to work out well. And then one of our athletes, Brian, who I know we're both extremely close with, he's an awesome, amazing, phenomenal guy. He's actually the one that really pushed having the 5 a.m. because he was a previous member at a gym that was shutting down, and so he loved what it had and what CrossFit did for him, and so he kind of pushed the 5 a.m. So I know at that point you were able to come to the 5 a.m. But what kind of pushed you to get in here?
I love that question, and I'll just compliment Brian for doing that. I've worked with Brian in some wellness coaching as well, and he's a phenomenal individual, and he continues to put in great work in here. So it's good to see his success and his positive trajectory continue along that path. And you're right, man. I was training in my backyard. I have a handful of equipment. I got Olympic bars. I got a squat rack and a bench and a lat pull down machine and a series of different things. I built a plyo box, and I've kept myself busy for almost a decade now of just training. But most of it's been on a solo tip or not really in a group setting. And CrossFit was something that I was always interested in the training method of, but never really put myself out there to get in a box, to explore it to the degree that I actually wanted to.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity to do that when I met you guys. And I started on the weekends, which was great. I kind of had that Jones, and I got that fixed through doing that. You guys had a couple of events. And then I ran into Cody, which I continue to train with here and there, which is an animal. We did our costume party, Halloween, and this is at the new location here where we are now.
Wait, what was Cody dressed up as? Can you remind us?
Well, Dr. Kraus, which he's actually a dentist. He was dressed up as a tooth fairy, so it was pretty classical. I mean, full leotards and everything.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was great. And his biceps were massive, so I don't even know how he found a costume that would fit through his biceps and his pecs.
Yeah, he had the whole tutu. The funny thing was, we were kind of the outcasts and the oddballs. Majority of the people knew each other, and he was like the last pick. I was just kind of in there as a wallflower, was joining the process, and I was dressed up in full spandex as Wolverine. So it was kind of a neat little combination of Wolverine and the Tooth Fairy working together in these partner wads, because we all partnered up that day.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So we had to do a few different things. We had wall walks. I remember having to throw him over my shoulder and just seeing almost the astonishment on his eyes. Like he was impressed that I threw him over my shoulder so easily and was able to run with him. And we punched through that wad together, and
that was fun.
Yeah, got a fairly good time. It was a great time. Did we do the Macarena that night?
No, that was for the open house. No, that night it's called Heroes and Zombies is the workout.
Okay.
And so like you go through one there. It's a 2-part workout, and the first part is like heroes. So you do like a partner carry. Shoot, I forget what else you do. You do a bunch of other stuff, and I know like the zombies were like deadlifts and like box jumps. It's really cool. I think we're gonna do that again. That was really, really fun.
Yeah, it really was. It gave people an opportunity to dress up as well, and to have a good time with it, which was it was cool.
It was super cool. Yeah, super awesome. Then we had a little thing for the kids at the end. So
yeah,
it's always fun. It's always fun to kind of break away from the daily wads and do something like that, and allow individuals who don't get to experience our gym or the people in our gym on a frequent case to get in here and kind of experience what we got. So
great question. And to take it back to your original question and answer that, Cody actually came up to me afterwards and he said, hey, you should think about coming to the 5 a.m. class and training with us there. He's like, it's usually a pretty light crowd, but it would be fun to have you. And I was like, 5 a.m., at the time, that was real conducive to my schedule and actually working and showing up and being able to do more than actual weekends, which was awesome. So I started doing that. I think you and I had already initiated conversation, because I was trying to transition out of my other teaching gigs, where I was teaching at the fitness center and I was teaching up at the college, and I was trying to find something a little bit more localized. In the CrossFit community and the athletes that we have in here was definitely a more conducive demographic of the individuals that I wanted to work with that maybe could have took on that role of yoga fit and what I saw that as being. So we pitched a proposal to your partners and to you as well. We brought that up, and that kind of like speeds us up into, I think it was the beginning of 2018, really.
I want to say that because I think it was a perfect transition to have classes with because you would do classes on Thursday night, and then the open announcement would be Thursday night, and then so it'd be a nice yoga session before we did the open workouts on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
So I think it was around that same time, probably February of this year.
Yeah, February of this year. So that was like at the curtailment of winter, and then going into spring, I continued training, in here, continued teaching a couple nights a week, which has been good. That's been a growing process for sure. And then we had, I think it was like in May, March.
It was March.
When's the open?
March.
March.
So
Okay.
last weekend
March.
in February, and then it goes through March.
Okay. Nice. And we had the CrossFit Open. That was my first experience, my first CrossFit Open experience
fun, huh?
in group competition. It really was. It certainly emphasized some of my strengths and exploited a lot of my weaknesses, which I come in here with a different mindset, but it really dialed me back as far as, where I was. And I guess when I first started, for me, it was hard to check that ego at the door and not want to throw weights around with other guys. But I think I've maintained that balance pretty well as far as like checking myself and dialing back and really trying to work on my form. And you've worked with me exclusively a handful of times and trying to get better at my Olympic lifts and things like that, because I'm just not going to gain that strength and that next level if I just continue to muscle through things with bad habits.
Well, exactly. And, we always preach quality over quantity, but it seems it's always quality over quantity until that clock beeps. You know what I mean? It's like
Your whole
everything
strategy
is like
goes out the window.
Out the door, man.
Yeah.
Out the door. And yeah, I mean, the more I've kind of been diving into the coaching, side of things, just understanding that it is important, you know what I mean? And it seems it's crazy when you hear one concept and then all of a sudden 1,000 people reiterate that same concept, and I love it. But the general idea is, okay, when you get sloppy at your lifts, let's just say you're doing a back squat, okay, and let's say you're around 80-90%, your knees start to cave in, your hips rise too quick, like you just feel super weak at the ascent of the lift.
Sure.
So then at that point, instead of me saying like, well, you stick at that weight and you keep drilling it, because one day it's going to click. It's like, no, let's scale back at the most 5%, maybe 10%. Let's get back to where you're doing perfect form. Now let's just keep drilling that and drilling that and drilling that and drilling that, because the quality movement's going to carry over far more. You know what I mean? Instead of you breaking yourself down with shitty technique, let's just scale it back some and remember that, as you progress in this, the more that you have that quality movement, it's going to carry over. So when you're stressed, fatigued, it's going to click back and you know what to expect, rather than, well, I always lift shitty, so I mean, this is just normal for me,
Right.
So that's awesome. And it's hard. It's really, especially in the heat of competition. I mean, I'm just as guilty, I've been a competitive athlete practically my entire life, and why I fell in love with CrossFit. So it's hard for me just to sit there and be like, you know what? I know you got to get as many rounds and reps as possible in a short time, and so you're just going to take it easy, and you're going to give me a perfect rep every time. So I think it takes a lot just to be able to step back and realize it is important,
It truly does. The great thing about that competition platform, though, is you could really analyze the growth. After the Open, I was encouraged to do my first team competition and asked by an old buddy of mine. And that was right around, transitioning from spring right into summer of 2018, where I did my first spring competition.
And that was the Barbells for Boobs competition, right?
No, it was the Atlas Blarney Stone. The Barbells for Boobs, they were down there. They had a tent, and they were just kind of pitching it, and I loved their message. So just sponsored that and went ahead and copped a shirt and some memorabilia too.
That's right. Well, I know because you did it with Josh, right? You did that competition with
Josh. Was actually down there showing support.
Gotcha.
Him and his wife were down there, but he didn't actually compete. But
gotcha.
But he had watched it.
Yeah, and I know, and that's why the only reason I asked was I know his gym does a lot of barbell for boobs. I think they do a barbell for boobs event every year, and it's a really awesome organization. It does a lot, and it's awesome just to see that CrossFit is trying to reach all platforms and support health and wellness, and not necessarily,
Yeah, certainly. We're trying to do more of that here in this gym. We just had a recent event as far as Saved by the Barbell.
Oh yeah.
Which was a promotion for kids.
That was fun.
And putting those donations out there.
That was really fun. Yeah, to benefit. I mean, we have a kids class, and I think kids classes are going to start to pop up a lot more. I don't think it's too common here in Colorado, but I can see where, schools and extracurricular activities and recesses, like that's starting to diminish physical activity. So I think it's really neat to still have something and still have something accessible. And I know even CrossFit, I don't think they charge an affiliate fees for school CrossFits. And I just think that is really awesome. I don't care what you feel about CrossFit. I just think that is amazing that they're willing to sacrifice any sort of extra income or profit for the benefit of kids, you know?
Yeah, to promote extra activity, to get them off of their screen time, whatever that may be.
Heck yeah.
Because it's tough. We have
Oh, it is very tough.
a lot of distractions out there in this day and age.
So
for
much,
sure.
man. So much. Yeah, and then I think going back to around summertime, I can't believe summer's already over. But you got married too, yeah?
Yeah, I did, man. Got married. It was kind of a private affair. We really didn't do anything too exclusive. It was
Yeah.
something that Jess and I had talked about doing. So we went to Vegas. We did the typical Vegas thing.
Love it.
Found a little thing down in Fremont.
Was it Elvis Presley?
It was not Elvis Presley,
Oh man,
but
I'm kind of disappointed. I'll tell Jess too.
yeah, you can tell her that she did do a little. She wore a dress, which she doesn't wear a dress often.
That's awesome.
And she had it was kind of a windy, hot day.
Oh, so it was outside?
On Fremont Street, yeah, and totally did the Marilyn Monroe and flashed everybody
Awesome.
in the city, so it was cool.
Awesome. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, it was cool, but we went down there and we had a bunch of itinerary that she set up. She's a planner. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist, so
Oh, yeah,
I just
dude.
go in with an
Yeah. You're like, oh, we got
optimistic
time,
mind.
dude.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll do whatever.
Yeah.
But we went to the Eiffel Tower, all the prestigious like big restaurants. We caught a couple of shows. We actually went and watched Carrot Top while we were down there, which
That's cool.
he has his residency down there, and it's a pretty real affordable show. But that dude is funny.
Yeah.
Also, like physically, seeing him physically, that dude's jacked, man.
Yeah, he
is.
did. Because he was the call AT&T guy, right?
Yeah.
And he was skinny, dude. And then I don't know what got in his head. I'm actually curious. I think there's a podcast that was done with him, and I don't know if it was Joe Rogan or if it was someone.
Yeah, I'd like to
with
know his
Carrot
quest.
Top. Yeah. That
For
would
sure.
that would be awesome. Hey, maybe one day we can get him on, bro.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we'll have to reach out and try to make something like that happen.
See.
Yeah, but Vegas was fun, man. I had an opportunity to not only sit there in the dry heat and do the whole strip experience and
Yeah.
go through all that, but I dropped into an amazing CrossFit box there, CrossFit Las Vegas. If you guys are ever
Awesome.
down there, they're amazing people. Their training and their facility is pretty prestigious, and I still have a connection with some of those folks down there where we follow each other on social and things like that, which is pretty cool. But that's the beautiful thing about CrossFit is you can go basically anywhere in the world. And if you're a CrossFitter or have tried CrossFit or even want to try CrossFit and you drop in, you're going to be embraced.
Yeah.
You're going to be embraced by that environment and by that culture. And they're going to be like, hey, like you're here to do the same things I am, to whatever promotes your health and your wellness. And that's cool. I dig it. So I went down there. And it was kind of weird. I was actually getting ready to give up on that situation because I went there and I showed up. I'm in the parking lot. They had like a Saturday class where it was supposed to be at like 9 or 10 a.m., something like that, which if you've ever been to Vegas and have had an all-nighter, 10 a.m. is really early in the morning. It feels like 5 a.m. But I drug myself out there. Like I took a lift over there, and lifts are super accessible out there.
Oh,
Definitely
yeah.
do that if you're out there traveling around. You can get to anywhere you want to pretty quick. So that's pretty cool, and it's super affordable. But
Yeah.
I was sitting in the parking lot, and I literally sat there for like half an hour. Finally, one person showed up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, just kind of waiting outside the facility." And then another person showed up like 20 minutes later. They're like, "Oh yeah, Allison, she's always late," which is like one of the owners there. And I'm like, "Huh." I'm like, I've been
Like, it
sitting out
sounds
here for
like-
like an hour.
It sounds like my CrossFit gym. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I'll fit right in here.
Yeah.
And so finally she showed up, and then I got connected and filled out the waiver form, everything, all that good stuff. And literally almost like 20 people started pouring in after that, even though the start time was much earlier on their website. But they had a internal culture, I'm sure, and an
Yeah.
understanding of what was going on. So that was a cool experience. We had a pretty killer wad, and just to see how they did things versus like how we did things, it was cool just to see the different dynamics of what's happening in another gym, and sharing in our collective messages together. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was a great experience. And then also, getting hitched in the process, and coming back on that private affair it was cool, man.
That's cool, dude. Well, congrats. That's always a good time. And Vegas is always fun, regardless what you go. It's always, it's never fun when you're traveling back because you're either rocking a mean hangover or just the travel time is just way too much. Um, but yeah, Vegas is always a great experience, regardless what you go there for. So.
Yeah, it's a fun experience. I had never been, so that was my first time, and
Cool.
it felt like
And
it
you
was.
were of age too, so awesome,
Yeah,
man. Perfect.
yeah,
Cool. Well,
exactly.
hey,
It was cool.
let's kind of wrap this segment up. We talked about kind of how your year was and how you've kind of grown, or kind of that timeline that's brought us to this place. I think we're both in excellent places, and we've had our share of failures, but we've also had our share of successes. Um, but to touch, or to get a little deeper, I should say, into that, what would be, um, let's just say, what would be a couple of your biggest takeaways from this previous year that you're gonna, either work on or something that you appreciated and you enjoy? Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love that question. Biggest takeaways. I guess if I were to reflect on the year since we met and the year in review, off of the topics that we have already previously discussed in this conversation, I would say to expect the landscape of coaching to change and to embrace that with an open mind. And an example that I would lead into with that would be like teaching with the weighted vest. Back when I was teaching at the fitness center, at the rec center, I had little six week block segments where I would teach a class, and I'd have individuals sign up for yoga fit classes, which was always interesting for me as a beginning teacher, going in there and expecting something and then getting something totally different. I would have like senior citizens, not to disgrace anybody, but I'd have individuals who would come up to me and say, well, I haven't done a push-up in about 25 years. Do you think I'd be able to do this class?
Yeah.
And I never wanted to turn away anybody, but I'd have individuals such as that. And then I had one which is extremely memorable experience for me as a teacher, was having four different women, all in different pregnancies, in different stages of their pregnancies. And had I not had gone through a pregnancy recently, while I was going through yoga teacher training and teaching with Jess, being pregnant with Logan, and going through some prenatal exercises that can help her prepare and stuff, I don't think I would have been prepared to take that on. But instead of turning that away, I went ahead and met it head on. And not only am I a male teacher meeting these women, I brought in my weighted vest, so I'm wearing a 20-pound weighted vest, and I just told them, I said, well, I don't plan to know what you guys are going through as far as, I have no idea what kind of changes you guys are going through with your bodies, but I'm going to try to do my best to meet you halfway as a teacher and do the best I can to teach a prenatal course and wear the vest so that I can understand how difficult it may be to shift from one position to the other. And I got a lot of respect from that, and that was a growing experience in and of itself. But yeah, just going it with an open mind. I kind of had like a loose-ended philosophy or a quote around that, which was like, scrap what you know, adapt and grow.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the experience of coaching, as you know as
I
well.
love that though. I really do, because I think if you stick with what you know, you're never gonna grow.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes you have to scrap your itinerary completely.
You do.
Just
Because what works for you doesn't always work for everybody.
Mhm.
But then even what works for one person doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's never gonna be a one fits all, type of thing. So
No, there's still no magic pill that I know about
No.
for
if you do, let me know.
6-minute abs.
Let me know. That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a huge takeaway. I guess the other thing that was a huge takeaway, bringing it back to becoming a father and going through fatherhood, and that entire experience was, the trending health habits that come with being a positive role model and a father, and having that be a technique of accountability in your own life, of leading as a better example, what you feed your kids, what you promote. Nobody wants to have the reflection of hypocrisy and just be a complete hypocrite to the things that we preach. And I know that's a struggle. I'm sure there's not a listener out there that's listening to the show that hasn't had their parents, tell them things that obviously you have witnessed your parents do themselves. So you don't want to be that person. You want to set a good example. So I think that transpires really well when you make those significant changes and you go through that maturity process. So, yeah, honestly, it took me nearly 35 years to become a man, in my opinion, because you have to go through like those pivotal points, and that was like a real catalyst for me of understanding like life from its beginning, and really just kind of like checking yourself and understanding that life is bigger than yourself, and now there's others that you have to lead in that process and kind of show them a better way, or to hand down those lessons in life. So that's been good. And then relationships in and of itself will promote the most meaningful growth. I feel like, you're in a relationship, and when you get in a relationship, as you know, like, you're challenged in ways you wouldn't normally challenge yourself.
Yeah.
From who you are. And I think that cultivates some beautiful growth and allows us to extend our perspective in life in general, so that we can get out there and understand without having like blinders on, and having such a narrow vision of what somebody else is going through, or just understanding somebody else in general, and being able to connect and to feel those emotions on a higher level.
Sure. Well, I think the biggest thing, like you said, connect. When I think immediately we think relationships. We're thinking intimate relationships, like with,
Yeah, certainly.
like with the opposite sex, or whatever. But we don't understand that the connections can be with anybody. You know what I mean? They could be with your son. They could be with your grandma. They could be with your cousin. They could be with a stranger. They could be with someone from the gym. It's just like anything. If you focus on, say, one movement, you're only going to get great at that movement. But now if you focus on several movements, now you're going to become a more well-rounded athlete. And I think relationships, say, correlate with that. Is, the more relationships you have, whether they're positive or negative, that connection that it brings, and the understanding of that relationship, and how you deal with situations, and say if you have things you need to work on, or things that you're great at, they always complement each other in one way, shape, or form. So I think having those relationships, and the more I personally think the more you have, the more benefit you can kind of get from it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, you look at our relationship and what we've been able to do, and come to this point, and pulling together that connective point, and trying to have this be a platform for other people to express and to share their voice with a greater audience, to put that message out there and to project, who we are, the things that we're doing, and give everybody kind of an inside look as to the things that we're trying to promote and the impact that we're trying to create together.
Sure. Absolutely love it. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing, man.
Cool, man. Yeah.
It's been an awesome first year already. I'm looking forward to many more moons with you, sir.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to do this again, and this time get your side of the story and pick your brain for, what your biggest takeaways were and your reflections on the last year, and allow the audience to get that inside look, since it's been about a year since we came together.
It has. And I tell you what, even if I was to look at myself last year, it probably wouldn't be the same, which I know you would agree 1,000%. And I think that's always good. We always are afraid of change, but I think change can always benefit us in one way, shape, or form. It just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere.
Start
Everybody
somewhere.
does, man.
Start somewhere cool.
But
All
just
right.
sometimes we just got to start, man.
Dude, exactly, right? You can not take months off. Breaks.
Sounds good, man.
All
Well,
right,
let's do
talk-
this again.
Yes, sir.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed the content. I'd like to take a moment to thank you for listening to today's show, because none of this would be possible without you. So until next time, stay true to your quest.